You are 17 years old, and you are your father's favorite son, and you do not fully understand yet what that costs you. You live in Canaan with your father Jacob, who loves you in a way that is visible to everyone around you, including your 10 older brothers who have watched that love your entire life and felt the absence of it directed toward themselves. Your father gives you a coat, not just any coat, a coat that says you are different, a coat that says you are chosen. You wear it without knowing that every time your brothers see it on your shoulders, something hardens a little more inside them. You are young, and you dream vivid dreams, and you make the mistake that the young often make, which is telling the truth to people who are not ready to hear it. You dream that your brothers bow down to you. You tell them. You dream it again, and this time the sun and moon bow down as well. You tell your father and your brothers, and the room goes silent in a way that should have warned you. But you are 17 and you are loved, and you do not yet know that love can make you blind to danger. This is where your story really begins. Not with the pit, not with Egypt. It begins here, in the moment before everything changes, when life is still recognizable and safe and yours. You are walking toward your brothers in the fields of Dothan, and you can see them watching you from a distance. You are wearing the coat. You are carrying food from your father. You are 17 years old, and you have done nothing wrong. And they see you coming from far away, and they make a decision about your life without consulting you at all. By the time you reach them, it is already decided. They grab you before you can speak. They tear the coat from your body. They throw you into a dry pit in the ground, and they sit down to eat their meal, while you are in the darkness below them, calling out to them with a voice they choose not to hear. You hear them talking above you. You hear them debating what to do with you. You hear your brother Judah suggest selling you instead of killing you, and you understand in that moment that the difference between death and slavery is being offered to you as mercy. A caravan of Ishmaelite traders passes by, and your brothers sell you for 20 pieces of silver. You are pulled out of the pit and handed to strangers, and the last thing you see of your home is your brothers returning to your father with your coat covered in goat's blood, preparing a lie they will keep for 22 years. You did nothing wrong. Remember that. You did nothing wrong. You are a slave in Egypt now, in the house of a man named Potiphar, who is a captain of Pharaoh's guard. You have lost your father, your home, your language, your freedom, and everything you have ever known. You are in a foreign country where nobody knows your name or your story or what was done to you. You could shut down. You could become bitter. You could do the minimum required to survive and spend the rest of your energy on resentment, which would be completely understandable given everything that has happened. But you do not do that. You work. You work with everything you have in a house that is not yours, for a man who does not know you, in a country that is not your home. And something begins to happen that you cannot fully explain. Everything you touch prospers. Every responsibility given to you grows. Potiphar notices. He promotes you. He gives you more. He eventually puts his entire household under your authority because he can see that something is with you, something that cannot be taught or faked or manufactured. You are a slave who runs a house of one of the most powerful men in Egypt, and you do it with integrity and without complaint. And God is in every ordinary, faithful day of it, even though you cannot see the full picture from where you are standing. And then it happens again. Potiphar's wife wants you, and you refuse her, not once but repeatedly, because you understand that some things are not worth the cost, even when the cost of refusing is high. She accuses you of the thing you refuse to do. Potiphar believes his wife. You are taken to prison without trial, without defense, without anyone standing up to say that they know your character and that this is not who you are. You go from running a household to a cell, and once again you have done nothing wrong. And once again the world does not care. This is the part of your story that nobody talks about enough. The waiting. The years inside the waiting. You are in prison, and you have now been betrayed twice. Once by your brothers and once by a lie. And you are still in Egypt, and your father still thinks you are dead, and there is no visible reason to believe that anything will ever change. But you do not collapse. You do not harden into someone unrecognizable. You serve. You help. You interpret dreams for two of Pharaoh's officials who are in prison with you, a cupbearer and a baker. And your interpretations are correct, exactly as you said they would be. The cupbearer is restored to his position just as you told him. You ask him only one thing. You ask him to remember you when he stands before Pharaoh, to mention you, to say your name. He goes back to the palace, and he forgets you completely for 2 full years. 2 more years in that cell after the one person who could have helped you walked out the door and never looked back. 2 years, inside the silence, inside the waiting that has no visible end. This is where most people break. This is where bitterness becomes permanent. This is where the person you were before the pit gets buried so deep that even you cannot find them anymore. But you are still there, still faithful, still doing the work in front of you, even when the work in front of you is small and unseen and unrewarded. And in those 2 years, something is being built in you that could not have been built any other way. A depth of character, a capacity for forgiveness, a wisdom that only comes from suffering that did not make you cruel. Pharaoh has a dream that nobody in Egypt can interpret. The cupbearer finally remembers you, not because he is a good person, but because he needs something and you are useful to him now. You are brought out of prison, cleaned up, and brought before the most powerful man in the world. Pharaoh tells you his dream, and you tell him the truth. 7 years of abundance are coming to Egypt, followed by 7 years of famine. So severe it will consume everything the abundance produced. You do not soften it. You do not tell him what he wants to hear. You tell him what is true, and then you tell him what to do about it. Pharaoh looks at you, a Hebrew slave who just came out of his prison, and he asks his officials where they could possibly find another man like this one. A man in whom the Spirit of God so clearly lives. He takes the ring from his own finger and puts it on yours. He dresses you in fine linen. He puts a gold chain around your neck. He gives you a second chariot, and the people bow before you in the streets of Egypt. You are 30 years old. You have been a slave and a prisoner for 13 years. And in a single morning, the entire direction of your life changes because you were faithful in the darkness when nobody was watching and nothing was being rewarded. The famine comes exactly as you said it would. It spreads across every nation. And one day, 10 men arrive in Egypt from Canaan, desperate for grain, and you recognize them immediately even though they do not recognize you. Your brothers, the ones who threw you in the pit, the ones who sold you for silver, the ones who let your father believe you were dead for more than 2 decades. They bow before you with their faces to ground, and you remember the dream you had at 17, and you understand in this moment that every single thing that happened to you was part of something you could not see from inside it. You have the power now to destroy them completely. You have every justification that has ever existed to make them suffer the way they made you suffer. And instead you weep. You weep so loudly that the Egyptians in the next room can hear you. You tell your brothers who you are, and you watch the blood drain from their faces. And you say to them, "Do not be distressed, and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." You reframe the worst thing that ever happened to you as the path that was necessary to get you where you needed to be. That is not weakness. That is the hardest thing a human being can do. Now here is why this story was told to you today. You are not Joseph, but you know what the pit feels like. You know what it is to be betrayed by someone who was supposed to love you. You know what it is to work faithfully in a season that produces no visible reward. You know what it is to wait for a door to open while the person who could open it has forgotten your name. You know what it is to be accused of something you did not do and have no way to prove your innocence. You know what it is to sit in a place you did not choose, in a life that does not look the way you planned, wondering if the dreams you were given at the beginning were ever real at all. Joseph's story was not written to make you feel better about suffering. It was written to show you that suffering has a direction even when you cannot see it. The pit was not the end of his story. The prison was not the end of his story. The forgetting was not the end of the story. And whatever you are in the middle of right now is not the end of yours either. Keep doing the work in front of you. Keep doing it with integrity when nobody is watching. Keep doing it when it is not being rewarded. Because the morning when everything changes often comes immediately after the longest night, and you will not see it coming, and it will be more than you asked for, and it will make sense of everything that came before it. Your pit is not your prison. Your prison is not your palace. But one leads to the other, and God does not waste a single day of the waiting.